We are excited because we get to have a virtual moment, a virtual workshop to tinker with things that maybe are bugging us. In fact, the name of the virtual workshop is I Never Liked That Story Anyway, Tinkering with Folktales That Don't Click. And this is being taught by Csenge Zalka out there in Hungary. And what's exciting is that you get to bring a story that is bugging you, and you can bring it forth and see if there can be ways to work it through. Now, I remember when you first approached me, Csenge, about this workshop, which, by the way, everybody, is going to be on Saturday, November 4th, 2023, and that's from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time. But if you go to storycrossroads.org/all-things-story, just like you see below, you can get the time zone converter. But I remember when you first approached me, you were very excited about it because it's something you've always wanted to do. So tell me why you're so drawn to do this, to work with other people on stories that bug them, traditional stories.
Yes, I've always worked with traditional stories, and that's where my heart is, and that's what I enjoy doing. And I think a lot of people don't realize how versatile tradition is and how much it changed through the ages according to the style of the tellers, the tradition that the stories traveled into, the audiences, all of these circumstances. And I think that a lot of people ask a storyteller what your favorite story is or what your favorite stories are. I get that question a lot, but I think the stories that you don't like speak just as much about your style or your values as a storyteller. And it was always curious to me how somebody would love a story or a version of a particular folktale, and other people would just say, ew, I would never tell that. Some people have strong feelings about classic fairy tales. Some people have strong feelings about Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty and the representation in them. And I just wanted to delve into that, and I just wanted to have a space where people can work through those feelings and work through those hang-ups in some of the stories that they have.
And you've actually researched so many folktales. I mean, we had you one time when you read a collection of folktales from every country in the world. And so what's helpful is not just that we're having this workshop, but you actually are familiar with so many and are aware of motifs, of variants, of versions that are out there. How does that help in all of this tinkering, the research background you have?
Well, the way I see it is when you work with traditional stories, they have a certain type of symbolism. They have these motifs, this huge treasure trove of international folktale motifs that travel and that change from version to version. So in my mind, if you want to work on a traditional story and you still want it to sound traditional, so you don't want to turn it into a literary fairy tale or a fractured fairy tale, you still want it to sound classic, like I don't have a better word for it, then you want to work with parts that comes from this treasure trove of motifs. So you want to swap out some parts, or you want to look at different versions of a story and see, oh, this could be explained this way, this could be explained that way. I could use this other symbol to fit into that space. So I'm basically just bringing a bunch of spare parts that I found on these reading journeys and through my research, and I will give the participants all of these spare parts and see if some of them might be useful to help them in their storytelling work.
And some people might get nervous. They might go, "Ooh, well, how dare we even touch folktales like that?" They might bring up things like, "Well, what about cultural appropriation?" And I'm sure you have your own thoughts of what the tinkering that we'll be doing versus something like that. So can you explain that for those who might be like, "Oh, is this allowed?"
Yes, I think part of the workshop will be talking about when you choose to tinker with a story. So we will start off with some of the problems that people might have, and we will, before we delve into tinkering with stories, we will address the fact of when do you choose just to not tell a story instead of tinkering with it, when you choose to pick a different variant of a story instead of changing parts of it, and how it all fits into the context of, you know, telling stories from your own tradition versus telling stories from another culture, and how that might be a concern or a problem that needs to be addressed. You know, as a Hungarian storyteller, Hungarian folktales have that flexibility of mostly existing for entertainment purposes. So, you know, unfortunately, our sacred stories didn't much survive the ages. So with Hungarian folktales, you can just take these parts and play with it and do whatever you want, but that's not necessarily true for old storytelling traditions around the world. So that is definitely going to be a part of the workshop, to decide when you pick a story to play with and how far you can stretch it before you just stop calling it a folktale or an adaptation of a folktale.
Right. Or inspired by, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's part of it too, is being clear beginning and ending with your audiences of, this is what this is. This is the birthplace of this story. And
Yes.
all of this, I think, is helpful to us. Of, there's going to be something. If you're going to be a storyteller, you're going to read enough stories, you're going to hear enough stories that something's going to bug you. So hang on to that. So here we are telling you to hang on to whatever bugs you and bring it. So that's kind of a homework part of this one. Now, if you forget and it's the day of the virtual workshop, it's okay. You'll be forgiven. Maybe you'll be inspired by hearing what other people are bringing to the table. So don't have that, you know, get you all nervous too. But even if generally you think of certain themes or values that that make you kind of that is something you can bring as well in this. So when is this workshop again? It is Saturday, November 4th, 2023. It's from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time. But again, there is that link below, storycrossroads.org/all-things-story. You can register, you can see the time zone converter. And what's the name of this workshop? I never liked that story anyway. Tinkering with folktales that don't click. And we're excited, Csenge Zalka, for all of your expertise. And it's actually going to be fun. This is a fun kind of tinkering. So be prepared for that. Until we tell again.